The thing about perfect marriages is they toast just right, until one side starts smoking. That night, I was the one who smelled it first. Jason had insisted we attend his boss's dinner party. Networking, he called it, as though my being there with a polite smile would somehow make him more successful at selling other people's dreams. I stood in front of the mirror while he fastened his cufflinks, practicing my expression. Polite, supportive, not too eager. Teachers are good at that look. We spend half our lives pretending the chaos behind our eyes is simply enthusiasm for Shakespeare. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The moment we pulled up to the grand house, with its stone pillars and two identical Mercedes in the drive, I knew I didn't belong there. I was wearing my nicest navy dress, the one I bought 3 years ago for parent-teacher conferences when I was still trying to impress parents who rarely noticed. Jason had a new suit, tailored, probably bought with the same discretionary bonus he said he didn't get. Inside, everything gleamed. Marble floors, glass sculptures, chandeliers that looked like they'd been shipped straight from a movie set about rich people behaving badly. His boss, Roger, had that kind of tan that comes from either expensive vacations or guilt. His wife, Pamela, kissed the air near my cheek and called me Clara. We drifted from conversation to conversation, each one a bubble of self-congratulation. The men discussed golf scores as though the numbers might save the world, while the women complimented each other's bracelets with the precision of trained diplomats. I stood near the buffet table, pretending to appreciate the imported cheeses. Jason was in his element, laughing too loudly, gesturing with his glass of wine like a conductor of arrogance. Then it happened. Roger asked, "So, Clara, what do you do?" "I teach English at Franklin Middle," I said. "8th grade." A polite silence followed. You could almost hear them trying to remember what middle school even smelled like. Then Jason chuckled. That little dismissive sound he makes when he's about to say something that will require damage control later. "You think I'd let her meet my wealthy clients," he said, turning to Roger with that smile he saves for selling houses. "She'd start correcting their grammar before they signed the paperwork." The table erupted in laughter. Except mine, of course. I smiled, slow and practiced. "You won't need to worry about that," I said. "I only correct people who still believe spell check is a personality trait." They laughed again, but this time the tone shifted, slightly nervous, as though they weren't sure who the joke was on. I excused myself to refresh and walked calmly to the powder room. Inside, I gripped the marble counter and looked at my reflection. Perfectly composed. My lipstick was still intact. The trick to surviving humiliation is pretending you didn't notice it. When I came back, Jason was bragging about closing a new property deal. He didn't look at me. He didn't have to. I'd seen enough of his public performances to recognize when I'd become a background prop. Dinner passed in a blur of courses and shallow conversation. Jason filled the air with stories, half-true ones, embellished for effect. He liked to pretend he'd built his business from nothing, conveniently forgetting my savings account had covered his first advertising campaign. When dessert came, a lemon tart too beautiful to eat, I found myself staring at the fine crack in the pastry's surface. It felt like a metaphor begging for attention. Afterward, we all moved to the patio for drinks. The night air smelled of cut grass and money. Roger poured whiskey for the men while Pamela offered the women herbal tea, as though that made her virtuous. I stayed near the railing, pretending to enjoy the view of their flawless lawn. That's when I saw Jason's hand brush against someone else's thigh. It was quick, practiced, invisible to anyone who wasn't looking for it. Dana, his coworker, the one with hair that always seemed freshly blown out and laughter just a bit too loud. I'd noticed her earlier, how her hand lingered on Jason's shoulder a second too long when greeting him. A microsecond of familiarity. Now I watched his fingers graze her knee beneath the tablecloth, and she didn't move away. My pulse steadied instead of racing. That's how you know the burn has gone deep. You stop feeling the heat. I left the patio, under the pretense of calling a cab. He didn't notice. I walked around the front of the house, heels clicking against the stone path, and stood under the street lamp. Suburban light, filtered through leaves, painted me in uneven gold. I took a breath that tasted like rust and lemon tart. By the time Jason found me, I'd already crafted the version of myself he expected, mildly irritated but forgiving. "Why are you out here?" he asked, voice dripping with the tone of a man who's been slightly inconvenienced. "Needed air," I said. "Your friends are charming." He smirked. "You were quiet." Hard to get a word in between all the self-praise. He didn't respond, just looked at me with that detached appraisal he used for houses, the kind where he's deciding if the foundation is worth keeping. I wondered if he realized that in this metaphor, I was the one holding the blueprints. On the drive home, he hummed along to the radio while I watched reflections of passing streetlights flicker across the windshield. Each flash felt like a silent punctuation mark between thoughts I couldn't yet name. When we pulled into our driveway, the lawn lights turned on automatically. Jason loved those motion sensors, said they made the house feel alive. To me, they always felt like judgment. I walked ahead while he grabbed something from the trunk. Inside, he loosened his tie and said, "Don't take that dinner too seriously, okay? Roger likes to joke around." "I noticed," I said. He poured himself another drink, ignoring the fact that he'd had enough already. "You were fine. You just need to relax in social settings." "Ah, yes," I said lightly. "Relax. That's what every woman wants to hear after being mocked in front of 12 people with matching watches." He looked up, eyebrows drawn. "You're overreacting." "Maybe, or maybe I'm just finally reacting." He sighed and went upstairs. Conversation closed, as usual. I stood in the quiet living room, listening to the faint hum of the refrigerator. That's when I noticed his phone buzzing on the counter. For a moment, I considered picking it up. But no, curiosity is a slow poison, better to build immunity first. I left it there, glowing like a tiny confession. Upstairs, I changed into pajamas, brushed my teeth, and crawled into bed. Jason was already half asleep, one arm thrown across the blanket as if marking territory. I lay still, watching the ceiling fan rotate, its rhythm steady and mocking. At some point, the phone buzzed again downstairs, 3 times. By morning, he was gone early for a meeting. He left his coffee cup in the sink, a thin ring of residue circling the bottom, the symbol of every half-effort he'd ever made. I spent the morning cleaning. That's what teachers do when they're processing. We organize chaos. I wiped counters, folded laundry, watered the dying basil plant on the windowsill. The sun moved slowly across the floorboards, painting long stripes of judgment. Around noon, my neighbor Trish appeared at the door with her usual basket of unsolicited opinions. "I heard the dinner was quite something," she said. "Roger's wife posted photos. Everyone looked so glamorous." "Did she?" I asked, feigning cheer. "Jason looked handsome as ever," Trish added. "You're a lucky woman." Lucky. The word landed like an insult disguised as a compliment. After she left, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, opened my lesson plans, tried to focus, failed. Instead, I scrolled through social media. Pamela had indeed posted pictures. There was Jason, arm around Dana, both laughing at something just out of frame. My husband looked radiant. I looked like an afterthought cropped from the edge. That evening, I made dinner anyway. Habit is a hard teacher to quit. When Jason came home, he was all smiles again, talking about new listings and how the market was exploding. He kissed my cheek, light as air. "Thanks for last night," he said. "You were great." I stared at him, trying to decide whether to laugh or applaud his audacity. Instead, I nodded. "Sure." He didn't notice the sarcasm, or maybe he did and chose to ignore it. Either way, we ate in silence, the sound of forks against plates filling the void. Later, as I washed dishes, I caught sight of him through the window, standing on the patio, phone pressed to his ear, smiling. The same smile he'd worn when he touched her knee. When he finally came inside, I asked, "Who is that?" "Work," he said quickly. "Client question." "Of course." He poured another drink and flipped on the TV. I dried my hands, turned off the kitchen light and stood behind him for a moment. The flickering screen lit his face in short, sharp bursts. He looked older in the harsh glow. Not wiser, just more practiced at pretending. Upstairs, I lay in bed and stared at my phone. I wasn't waiting for a message. I didn't know what I was waiting for. Maybe a sign that the life I'd built wasn't quietly eroding under my feet. Instead, I got something else. At 11:42 p.m., my phone buzzed. A message from Evan, Jason's best friend. "Hey, Clara, sorry to text so late. Can we talk about something important?" I frowned. Evan and I had never exchanged messages before. He was Jason's weekend golf partner, the kind of man who thought every serious conversation should happen over expensive cigars. Before I could reply, another message appeared. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but Jason's been bragging about things he shouldn't. I thought you should know. My hands trembled slightly as I typed back, "What things?" He responded with a voice note. Jason's voice filled my kitchen, smug, self-satisfied, unmistakably his. "Clara's so easy," he said. "I could walk in wearing lipstick and she'd still believe I was faithful." A laugh followed, Evan's laugh, then another woman's, low and confident, Dana. The recording ended. I stared at the screen, frozen not in shock but in recognition. Pieces that never fit now clicked together. Late meetings, mysterious receipts, his sudden interest in new cologne. I deleted the voice note and sat very still. The refrigerator hummed again, steady and indifferent. Jason was upstairs, snoring softly. For a long moment, I just listened to the ordinary sounds of the house. Then I whispered, "You won't need to worry about that." The phrase echoed back to me from memory, the line I'd thrown at him during dinner. It sounded different now. Not sarcastic, promising. I went to the window and looked out at the dark street. Each porch light flickered in perfect suburban synchrony, like candles at some quiet ritual. I wondered how many of those perfect families hid their own fractures behind trimmed hedges and fresh paint. Probably most of them, maybe all. The clock ticked toward midnight. I didn't sleep. My mind wasn't spiraling. It was assembling. Teachers are good at structure. By the time the sky turned grey, I had the first outline of something new. Not forgiveness, not even justice. A plan, and the faintest hint of satisfaction that this time, the toast was burning on my terms. The next morning began like a perfectly ordinary Tuesday, which somehow made everything worse. The sun slid through the curtains at the same angle as always. The coffee machine hissed its usual sigh, and Jason's tie was the exact shade of smug blue it had been yesterday. He kissed my cheek on the way out, and I didn't flinch. That might have been my first real act of power, pretending. At school, I stood in front of my 8th graders and taught to kill a mockingbird. Ironic, considering my new feelings toward justice. I asked them about empathy, about standing in someone else's shoes. None of them cared. They were too busy whispering about cafeteria rumors. It struck me that middle school gossip wasn't that different from adult gossip, just cheaper handbags and worse grammar. During lunch, my colleague Jenna sat across from me, chewing her salad like it had wronged her. "You look pale," she said. "Rough night?" "Just grading essays," I said. "The usual crimes against syntax." She laughed, which helped. Teaching gives you a kind of armor. The more chaos you face daily, the harder it is for personal pain to find a gap. Still, by the time the final bell rang, my brain felt like a drawer full of loose screws. When I got home, Jason was already there, sprawled on the couch, watching something loud and pointless. He muted the TV as if it were a grand gesture of intimacy. "Hey," he said, smiling too easily. "How is work?" "Educational," I said, slipping off my shoes. "Yours?" "Busy, clients all day. Evan and I are working on a new deal. Big one." Hearing Evan's name was like tasting metal. I nodded, pretending interest. "He texted me last night," I said casually. Jason frowned. "He what?" "He said he needed to talk. I assumed it was work-related. Maybe he mixed up the numbers." Jason chuckled, but his eyes darted to the side, a tiny movement that said more than any word could. "Yeah, probably. Evan's been overworked lately. Don't read into it." "Oh, I never do." He smiled again, relieved that I wasn't pushing. I could practically see the tension slide off him like mist from a mirror. That's the thing about confidence. It wilts the moment you stop feeding it attention. He went upstairs to shower. The moment the water started running, I took his phone from the counter. Not to snoop, I told myself, just to confirm what I already knew. His passcode was our wedding date because of course it was. Predictable men leave predictable doors unlocked. No new messages from Dana. He must have deleted them. But there was a thread from Evan, buried under client chats. My thumb hovered before I opened it. The last text was from Jason, time-stamped 2 nights ago. She'll never find out. She still thinks I'm some hero for paying the bills. I closed the phone gently, set it exactly where it had been, and breathed slowly. Each confirmation didn't hurt, it clarified. There's a strange relief in finally knowing what you're up against. When Jason came downstairs, I smiled. "Dinner's in the oven." He kissed my hair, completely unaware that I'd just finished disassembling the foundation of his comfortable little illusion. After he went to bed, I reopened my laptop and scrolled through Evan's social media. Pictures of golf outings, lake weekends, and his wife, Allison, a woman who seemed to radiate positivity in pastel. I wondered if she had any idea her husband's best friend treated their lives like a locker room joke. Around midnight, I messaged Evan. "Hey, you said you wanted to talk." "What about?" He replied almost immediately. "I shouldn't have sent that voice note. Jason doesn't know." "I didn't tell him," I wrote, "but I need to understand what he's been saying." After a pause, he typed, "You sure you want to know? It's ugly. I already know he's been unfaithful. I just want the truth." Typing dots appeared, then stopped. Then came a new message. He brags. Says you're too plain to notice. Says he could introduce you to his clients, but you wouldn't fit in. I told him that was low, but he laughed. "I shouldn't have told you, but it's been eating at me." I stared at the message. Plain. That word again, like a label stuck to my forehead. "Thanks for telling me," I typed. "Maybe we can meet for coffee tomorrow. I want to understand everything before I decide what to do." He agreed too quickly. "Sure. The cafe on Elm at 5. Perfect." I closed the laptop and sat in the dim kitchen. The hum of the refrigerator was steady, a metronome marking the rhythm of my thoughts. My heart wasn't racing. It was calculating. The next day, I told Jason I had a staff meeting after school. He barely looked up from his phone. "Fine. Don't forget to pick up milk." At 4:55, I parked outside the cafe. Evan was already there, sitting by the window, his tie loosened and his expression heavy with guilt. He stood when he saw me, too eager to play the role of concerned friend. "Clara, thanks for coming," he said. I smiled faintly. "You made it sound urgent." "It is. Jason's been, well, not himself. I shouldn't have told you anything. It's not my place." "But you did." He hesitated. "I just thought you should know what kind of man he's become. He's been bragging about Dana for months. Says she understands him better than you do." "Does she?" I asked, voice steady. Evan blinked. "You're taking this calmly." "I'm a teacher," I said. "We learn to manage chaos." He chuckled nervously. "Fair enough." He sipped his coffee, eyes flicking over my face as if searching for cracks. "You know, you deserve better." Jason doesn't appreciate what he has. Maybe not, I said, leaning in slightly. Tell me more. He did. People like Evan can't resist filling silence. He spilled details, times, places, even which client events Jason used as cover. Every word was another tile in the mosaic I was building. I recorded the conversation, openly, phone face up on the table. He didn't even question it. When we finished, he reached across the table. I shouldn't say this, but if things don't work out, you and I could... I interrupted, smiling. You think that's appropriate? He flushed. Sorry. Habit. I stood. Don't be sorry. Some habits are just warnings in disguise. Outside, the sky had darkened into a heavy grey. As I walked to my car, I caught a reflection in a shop window, Jason's car parked half a block away. My stomach tightened. He was sitting behind the wheel, pretending to be on the phone. I didn't run, but I didn't stroll either. I opened my door, slid in, and started the engine. He pulled out behind me. The drive home turned into an unspoken duel. He stayed 2 cars back, careful but obvious. I took the long route through residential streets, lined with maple trees and Halloween decorations. When I finally pulled into our driveway, I waited until he parked beside me before getting out. He climbed out of his car, jaw clenched. Were you meeting Evan? Yes, I said evenly. He had something to tell me. Jason's mouth twitched. About what? About you. That idiot. He's exaggerating. Interesting word choice. He stepped closer. Clara, this is getting out of hand. You're listening to gossip. You're smarter than that. I tilted my head. I am smarter than that, which is why I didn't rely on gossip. I asked for specifics. He froze, reading my tone like a man realizing the rules had changed. What are you planning to do? Teach a lesson, I said softly. You always said I was good at those. He laughed once, short and humorless. You're overreacting again. Maybe. Or maybe I'm finally grading fairly. He walked past me into the house, muttering about how unreasonable I was. I followed, calm and methodical. That night he tried to act normal, ordered pizza, watched sports, commented on the game as if the air wasn't thick with revelation. I played along, pouring us both glasses of wine. When he went upstairs, I opened my laptop again and began organizing what I knew. The voice note, Evan's confession, the pattern of Jason's supposed business trips. It all fit neatly into folders. Around 10, my phone buzzed again. Evan. I shouldn't have said so much today. Jason's furious. He knows I talked to you. He followed me, I typed back. Then be careful. He's angry. He's talking about selling the house fast before any legal trouble hits. He said you'd never see it coming. I stared at the words until they blurred slightly. The house was in both our names. Selling it would take my signature unless he forged it. And Jason was precisely the kind of man who'd consider that a clever shortcut, not a crime. Thanks for the warning, I replied. Don't contact me again. It's safer for you. He didn't argue. I sat there, phone in hand, feeling the walls of my tidy life rearrange themselves. The living room looked the same, framed photos, soft lighting, but underneath it all was a shift, like the ground quietly moving before an earthquake. Jason came downstairs in sweats, yawning. Coming to bed? In a bit, I said, just finishing lesson plans. He nodded, already half distracted. Don't stay up too late. Wouldn't dream of it. When he disappeared upstairs, I opened our shared email account. Sure enough, there were drafts of property listings, the same kind he used for clients, but one had our address. For discreet sale, the note read. Contact to be made through a private buyer. I laughed under my breath, a dry sound that felt more like clarity than humor. So that was his next move. Erase me financially. Sell our home out from under me while smiling across the breakfast table. I closed the laptop, turned off the lights, and leaned against the counter. The moonlight cut thin stripes across the kitchen tiles. Everything felt sharp-edged, deliberate. The next morning, I was waiting by the front door when he came down, briefcase in hand. Heading to the office, I asked sweetly. Yeah, big day. Don't wait up. Oh, I won't. He smiled, kissed my cheek again, and left. The same routine, but this time I watched him back out of the driveway with new eyes. He wasn't leaving for work, he was leaving a crime scene that hadn't yet been discovered. I spent the rest of the day making copies of documents, bank statements, the house deed. Nothing dramatic, just careful groundwork. Teachers are good at paperwork. At 3, while my students worked on essays, I checked my phone. A message from an unknown number popped up. You don't know me, but you should check Jason's client list. Dana isn't his only secret. No name, no follow-up. I looked at the clock, 10 minutes left in class. My voice didn't even shake as I said, "All right, pens down." When I got home that evening, Jason's car wasn't there. For once I was grateful. I went straight to his office. The drawer wasn't locked. He never thought he needed to hide things from me. Inside was a stack of business folders. Among them, one marked private. Inside were photos from open houses, Jason with smiling clients, champagne glasses, and Dana always somewhere in the background. But one photo stood out. It wasn't professional, it was personal. Jason and Dana at a lake cabin, arms around each other. My heart didn't ache. It focused. That night I made dinner again. When Jason came home, he was all charm and false warmth. "You look nice," he said, as though complimenting a student presentation. "Thanks," I said. "I thought we could have a quiet night, maybe talk." "Talk?" "Yes, about what happens next." He stiffened. "Clara, please, let's not ruin dinner." I smiled. "Too late, dinner's already cold." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "You've been talking to Evan, haven't you?" "Among others." He went silent. For once, he didn't have a quick line ready. I could see him calculating. I let the silence stretch until it became unbearable. Finally, he said, "Whatever you think you know, it's exaggerated. You don't understand how business works." "Right," I said softly. "Selling houses, lying to wives, must be exhausting keeping all those contracts straight." He pushed his chair back sharply. "I'm done with this conversation." "I'm not." He froze halfway to standing. I leaned forward, resting my chin on my hand. "You once told me honesty was non-negotiable in your work. I hope you live up to your brand, Jason. Because tomorrow, I'm going to start making some calls. To clients. To your boss. To anyone who might care about integrity." His mouth opened, closed. "You wouldn't." I smiled. "Try me." He stared at me for a long moment before storming upstairs. I listened to his footsteps fade, steady and controlled, just like everything else about him. When the house went quiet, I took out my phone and sent a single message to Evan. "Thank you for everything. I got what I needed." He replied within minutes. "Are you okay?" "Better than fine," I wrote. "I'm just getting started." Then I set the phone down, walked to the window, and looked out at the still street. Each house around me glowed softly under porch lights, hiding its own secrets. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the quiet teacher at the edge of someone else's story. The next chapter would be mine. The next morning, I woke up before Jason, which almost never happened. He usually moved around the house first, his routine loud enough to wake the whole neighborhood. But that day, I wanted silence. I wanted the sound of my own thoughts before his voice filled the air again. I made coffee and opened my laptop at the kitchen counter. The file I'd created was waiting for me. Project. No one would suspect anything so plain. Inside were screenshots, audio clips, and photos. I'd color-coded each section, because organization is my love language and apparently my revenge style. I sipped coffee and labeled folders with calm precision. Financial, personal, witness. It felt less like fury and more like grading papers, Methodical, necessary, and oddly satisfying. Jason came down wearing his expensive cologne, already on his phone. "Morning," he said, distracted. "Morning," I replied. "Big day." He smiled. "Always." He didn't notice that my tone had shifted, that I wasn't asking out of interest anymore. When he left, I watched through the window as he got into his car, probably headed to Dana's office before work. My coffee was still warm when my next step clicked into place. I grabbed my phone and texted Evan. "Need another chat? Meet me at the park near Main at 4. His reply was instant. "Sure, everything okay?" Better than okay. "I just want to clear a few things up. It was mid-October, and the park looked like a painting. Red leaves scattered across the paths, benches dusted with gold. When Evan arrived, he looked nervous, like a man expecting an ambush. Maybe he was. "Clara," he said, hands in pockets, eyes darting around. "You sure this is a good idea? Jason's suspicious." "Suspicious of what?" I asked, feigning innocence. "Of us talking. He said he saw you at the cafe." "Oh, he saw me all right," I said lightly. "He followed me." Evan winced. "I tried to warn you. He's losing control." "Maybe, but I'm not." He hesitated. "You have a plan, don't you?" "I have a draft," I said, "and drafts can always be edited." He almost smiled, then caught himself. "What do you want from me?" "Information," I said. "You're closer to him than anyone. I need to know how far he's gone. If he's really trying to sell the house, I need proof." Evan shifted uneasily. "That's serious, Clara. You could ruin his career." "Good. Then we understand each other." For a second, he looked at me as though seeing a new person entirely. "You're not what I expected," he said softly. "Neither is he." He sighed, pulling out his phone. "All right, there's a file on his computer labeled discrete listings. It's password protected, but he uses the same password for everything. His golf membership number. I shouldn't be telling you this." "Then don't think of it as telling me," I said, smiling. "Think of it as unburdening your conscience." He nodded slowly, pocketing his phone. "You're good at this." "I teach teenagers," I said. "They're better liars than most adults. I've learned." We parted ways, and I felt lighter, not happier, but clearer. The difference between those two things matters. That night, Jason was unusually pleasant. He brought home takeout from my favorite Thai place and asked about my day like a man rehearsing sincerity. I played along. "Just grading essays," I said. "Kids think symbolism means using the word dark 3 times." He laughed, too loud, too forced. "You're funny when you're frustrated." "I'm funny all the time," I said, smiling thinly. He reached for my hand across the table, the same hand that had touched someone else the night before, probably. I let him. The best traps are built out of familiar gestures. After dinner, he went upstairs to shower. I opened his laptop, no passcode. He'd always said he trusted me completely. He wasn't wrong. He just didn't specify the kind of trust. I found the folder easily. Discrete listings. Password accepted. Inside were property files, but one name stood out. Private buyer, C&J residence. Our address. He'd even included my initials. The document listed the asking price, photos of our home's interior, and a note. Seller motivated, quiet transaction preferred. My throat tightened, but not from emotion. From strategy. He wanted to erase me cleanly, so I decided to make a little noise. The next day, I printed everything, every listing, every message, every document. Paper evidence doesn't vanish with a tap. I stored copies in my classroom cabinet under lesson plans. If anyone ever questioned it, well, teachers keep everything. After work, I met with a lawyer. Not a divorce lawyer yet, just someone who could advise me about property rights. She looked through the papers, frowned and said, "He can't legally sell without your signature, but if he fakes it, we'll need to prove intent." "Can we?" "With enough documentation, yes." I thanked her and left, the weight of certainty replacing the ache of betrayal. That evening, Jason texted, "Running late, client dinner." I smiled at the screen. "Take your time." Then I changed clothes, grabbed my car keys, and drove to the restaurant near the waterfront, the one he always chose for client meetings. His car was there, parked under a flickering streetlight. Inside, through the window, I saw him and Dana laughing over wine. She leaned in, her hand brushing his. Classic. I could have walked in, could have made a scene. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out a small tube of lip gloss, berry red, just noticeable enough. I uncapped it and smeared a little across the driver's seat of his car, a perfect print of an invisible woman. Then, for good measure, I adjusted his side mirror slightly downward, just enough for him to notice later and wonder if someone had been inside. Sometimes revenge doesn't need volume, it just needs precision. The next morning, he was irritable. "Did you use my car last night?" "No," I said, sipping coffee. "Why?" "The mirror's off, and there's lipstick on the seat." I raised an eyebrow. "Lipstick? Maybe Dana borrowed it." He froze. "What?" "You said she borrowed your jacket once after a showing. Maybe she borrowed the car, too." He stared at me, trying to read my face. I kept it perfectly neutral, the way I did when a student lied about missing homework. Eventually, he shrugged, muttered something about vandals, and dropped the subject. That day at school, I could barely focus on grading. My mind buzzed with the rhythm of control. I was no longer reacting, I was conducting. By late afternoon, I got a message from Evan again. "Jason's freaking out. He thinks someone's watching him." I smiled. "Someone is." "What are you doing, Clara?" he wrote. "You're scaring him." "Good. Maybe he'll finally learn what fear feels like when it's quiet." There was no reply after that. That evening, Jason confronted me. "Evan said you've been texting him again." I looked up from my laptop. "Have I?" He showed me messages. "Interesting," I said, closing the laptop. "Maybe you two should coordinate your lies better." He stepped closer. "I don't know what you're trying to pull, but you're making things complicated for both of us." "Oh, I'm simplifying," I said softly. "You'll see." He left the room, shaking his head, muttering something about me being impossible. The door slammed, but I barely flinched. Later that night, while he slept, I took the USB drive from my bag and connected it to his computer. I copied everything: emails, client data, contracts. It wasn't about destroying him yet, it was about knowing how deep the rot went. Halfway through the transfer, headlights flashed outside. I peeked through the curtain. A dark SUV idled across the street. Someone inside smoked, the ember faintly glowing. A neighbor, maybe. Or someone Jason owed. Either way, it reminded me how easily appearances deceive. The next day brought rain. Jason left early, umbrella in hand, jacket crisp. I stayed behind and made my move. I visited his office, pretending to drop off his forgotten lunch. The receptionist smiled politely, unaware of the theater unfolding. I spotted Dana in the hallway, clipboard in hand, laughter too bright for the grey morning. She saw me before I could turn away. "Clara! Hi!" Her voice was sugar-coated, stretched thin over nerves. "Jason's not here," she added quickly. "I know," I said, "just dropping something off." Her eyes darted to the paper bag, then back to me. "You two are okay?" "Perfect," I said, "better than ever." I let the words hang there long enough for her to question them. Then I smiled and walked out. In the parking lot, I brushed my fingers along her shiny car hood and whispered, "Maybe next time you'll think twice." Then I took the small bottle of nail polish remover from my purse and poured a little over her front tire. It wouldn't cause damage, just dull the shine, tiny sabotage, poetic justice. That evening, Jason came home furious. "What did you do?" I blinked. "About what?" "Dana's car. Someone ruined the finish. She thinks it was you." "Oh? Why would she think that?" "Because you showed up at the office." I tilted my head. Jason, are you accusing me of something? He hesitated, deflating slightly. No, just be careful. People talk. They always do, I said, smiling faintly, especially when they have something to hide. He went quiet. For once, I had nothing to add. That night, while he brooded in his study, I sat on the porch with a glass of wine and listened to the rain tapping on the railing. Across the street, lights flickered in Tricia's windows. I imagined her on the phone with someone, retelling a version of my life that sounded just dramatic enough to be entertaining. Perfect. The more noise they made, the easier it would be for my real moves to stay quiet. The next few days played out like a chess match. Jason became cautious, overly polite. He started bringing me coffee in the mornings, complimenting my clothes, pretending to remember anniversaries that hadn't happened yet. I knew he was trying to gauge how much I knew. On Friday, he suggested we go to dinner. A fresh start, he said. I agreed, because why not? Fresh starts make excellent camouflage. We went to an upscale restaurant downtown, the kind with soft jazz and menus without prices. He was charming all evening, making small jokes, asking about my students. I laughed in the right places, letting him believe the balance was restored. Then, halfway through dessert, his phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. He excused himself to the restroom, leaving the phone on the table. Rookie mistake. The screen lit up with a message. Can't wait to see you after. D. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. The timing said enough. When he came back, I smiled and said, You look better. Relaxed. Yeah, he said, relief softening his face. I think things are finally calming down. Me too, I said. We drove home in silence, the kind that hums with pretense. When we pulled into the driveway, I said, You go ahead. I need to grab something from the trunk. As he walked inside, I took my keys and ran them lightly along the back of his car. Just one small line, nothing visible unless the light hit it just right. A whisper of consequence. Inside, I found him pouring himself a drink. You okay? He asked. Never better, I said. Later that night, lying in bed beside him, I realized something simple but powerful. Revenge didn't feel like hate. It felt like balance being restored, one calculated gesture at a time. The next morning, Evan texted again. Jason's panicking. He thinks someone's leaking information to his clients. Did you tell anyone? Not a word, I replied, but I might have let a few truths wander into the right ears. He didn't respond for a while. Then finally, You're playing with fire. Fire's useful, I typed back. It clears the weeds. I stared at the message after sending it, smiling to myself. By Sunday evening, Jason's boss had called him in for a talk. He came home agitated, muttering about office politics. He poured himself another drink and said, Someone's spreading rumors. Clients are nervous. Rumors? I asked, leaning against the doorway. About what? He hesitated. About me and Dana, about our listings. Someone's saying we're unethical. I feigned concern. That's terrible. Who would do that? He looked at me for a long time, then said quietly, If you're trying to destroy me, Clara, you're doing a great job. I smiled faintly. Destroy is such a strong word. I prefer rearrange. He slammed his glass down, liquid spilling onto the counter, but he didn't shout. He just looked uncertain, like a man realizing the game he'd been playing had different rules now. When he finally went upstairs, I stayed behind, cleaning the spill, humming softly. The house smelled of citrus cleaner and quiet triumph. The next morning, as he left for work, he paused at the door. You've changed, he said. Maybe I just stopped pretending, I replied. He left without another word. When the door closed, I walked to the window and watched him drive away. My reflection stared back at me, calm, deliberate, patient, the kind of woman who didn't need luck anymore. And somewhere between the silence and the hum of the refrigerator, I knew. The real lesson was only halfway written. By the following week, The entire cul-de-sac felt charged, like static before a storm. It was subtle at first, neighbors pausing conversations when I walked by, a couple of lingering glances over fences, that unmistakable whisper energy that suburban life feeds on. Gossip doesn't need fuel in neighborhoods like ours. It breeds on imagination. And I had just given them their favorite subject, me. Trish, my self-appointed social correspondent, showed up Monday morning while I was clipping wilted roses in the garden. "Clara," she said in a stage whisper, "are you okay?" That was her favorite phrase. It sounded concerned but carried the undertone of, "Tell me everything." "I'm wonderful," I said. "Why?" Her voice dropped lower. "People are saying there's trouble between you and Jason. That he's been keeping company with someone from his office." "Oh, people are saying that?" I asked, smiling sweetly. "Good. Maybe they'll finally have something accurate to talk about." Her eyes widened. "So it's true." "Trish," I said, leaning closer, "you know how rumors work. Once they start, you can't control them. But it's interesting which direction they travel, don't you think?" She looked scandalized, thrilled, and faintly guilty, all at once. I didn't mean..." "Don't worry," I said. "Just remember to quote me correctly." By sunset, the neighborhood grapevine had exploded. I could almost feel it spreading house to house, text to text, group chat to group chat. That's the thing about polite suburbs. Their facades crack faster than old paint when given the right nudge. Jason came home late that evening, his expression tight. "What did you do?" "Define do," I said, stirring pasta sauce. "Half the office knows about me and Dana now. Roger called me in. He said clients are asking questions." "That's unfortunate," I said. "You should probably issue a statement. Maybe something about integrity." He slammed his briefcase on the counter. "You started this." "I didn't start it," I said calmly. "I just stopped covering for you." He stared at me, jaw working like he was chewing invisible nails. "You're ruining my career." "Jason, your career seems to ruin itself just fine." He left the kitchen without another word, and I smiled at the sound of his heavy footsteps on the stairs. I wasn't proud of the satisfaction, but I wasn't apologizing for it either. The next morning, the local Facebook group for our neighborhood, the Gardens Connection, lit up with posts. Someone had anonymously shared a thread about marital misconduct among residents, complete with thinly disguised references. The comment section bloomed like weeds. I didn't post anything myself, of course. Real power comes from invisibility. At school, even Jenna noticed something different about me. "You seem taller," she said at lunch. "I started standing up straighter," I replied. "Good posture makes people nervous." That afternoon, as I walked out to my car, I saw a sleek black sedan parked across the street. Inside sat Dana. Her sunglasses were too large, her lips pressed tight. When I got closer, she rolled down the window. "Clara, can we talk?" "I didn't realize we were on speaking terms," I said. "Jason told me you're spreading lies." "Then you know how that feels," I said. Her expression faltered. "This isn't funny. You're damaging reputations." I leaned in slightly, smiling. "Oh, Dana, if a reputation is that fragile, it was built on air." She took off her sunglasses. "What do you want from me?" "I already have it." "Meaning?" "Meaning I don't need to do anything else. You'll handle the rest for me." She looked at me like I'd spoken in riddles. I simply walked away, leaving her confusion to ferment. Because the truth was, gossip requires only one ingredient, insecurity, and Dana had plenty. That evening, I invited Trish and 2 other neighborhood wives for wine night. It was strategic, not social. They arrived armed with bottles and curiosity. "Jason must be so stressed," one of them said, swirling her glass. "It's such a shame. He's always been so charming." "Oh, he's still charming," I said. "He just uses it on different audiences now." They giggled uncomfortably. Trish leaned in. "Is it true he was seen at the Harbor House restaurant with her?" I shrugged. "You tell me. You're the one with the binoculars, aren't you?" They laugh too hard, but that's how gossip works. It hides behind humor. By the end of the evening, I knew the story would grow its own legs, and I intended to let it run. 2 days later, Jason showed up at my classroom after school. His face was tight, eyes flicking nervously around the empty room. "We need to talk." "During office hours?" I asked. "You must be desperate." "Stop acting like this is a game," he said. "It's not," I said. "Games have rules." He exhaled hard. "Clients are dropping. Roger's furious. Dana's been getting calls from her husband." I looked up sharply. "Her husband? She didn't tell you she's married?" That piece of information landed like a stone in water, ripples expanding in my mind. Dana wasn't single. That changed everything. "Interesting," I said, closing my gradebook. "Maybe she should focus on her own home then." Jason rubbed his temples. "Clara, please, this is spiraling." "I agree," I said. "You should try to slow it down before it crashes." He left without slamming the door this time. That told me he was afraid, not of me exactly, but of losing control. By Friday, the circus reached full swing. Someone posted photos of Dana and Jason together at an open house, claiming they'd been too close for professionalism. The comments turned vicious. Jason called me that night from his office, voice strained. "Clara, I need your help. You have influence with the neighborhood crowd. Tell them to stop." "Oh, Jason," I said softly. "You wanted to keep up appearances. I'm just helping you perform." "You don't understand." "No, I understand perfectly," I interrupted. "You made a show of me. Now the audience gets to enjoy yours." He hung up on me. Saturday brought the next act. Jason was hosting a public open house for one of his listings, a high-end property just outside town. He invited clients, brokers, and local press. Naturally, I attended. Teachers know the value of field observation. When I arrived, he looked startled. "What are you doing here?" "Supporting my husband," I said sweetly. He forced a smile for the crowd. The house was a masterpiece. Marble counters, glass walls, a living room that screamed new money. People floated around with champagne flutes, admiring everything. Jason worked the room like a professional magician, pretending his world wasn't unraveling. Halfway through the event, I spotted Dana near the refreshment table, whispering to a woman I recognized from the same agency. She looked tense, glancing toward Jason repeatedly. I approached, pretending to browse brochures. "Beautiful property," I said. Dana flinched slightly. "Clara, maybe you should leave." "Oh, but I just got here." I smiled. "I'd hate to miss the show." She didn't answer. Instead, she turned and walked quickly toward the back door. Jason noticed and followed her. That's when I saw it, his car parked near the side entrance, spotless, polished to perfection. The same car that had once been our weekend getaway vehicle, back when I still believed in teamwork. A delivery dolly sat near the porch, left by the catering crew. I glanced around. No one was watching. With deliberate calm, I nudged it toward the car, accidentally bumping the side mirror. It snapped backward, leaving a faint scuff mark. The sound drew immediate attention. "Oh no," I exclaimed dramatically. "I'm so clumsy." People turned. Jason came rushing out, eyes wild. "What did you do?" "It was an accident," I said innocently. "You know I'm terrible with machinery," the guests whispered. A couple of them exchanged glances that said marital trouble confirmed. Jason's jaw tightened. "We'll talk about this later," he hissed. "Of course," I said, smiling. "We always do." I left before the whispers turned to laughter. That night I sat on the porch with a glass of wine, watching the quiet street. The air smelled faintly of autumn and scandal. A text buzzed on my phone. It was from Evan. He's falling apart. Roger's considering suspension. "What's your endgame, Clara?" "Truth," I typed, "and balance. You've got both." "Why keep going?" "Because he still has peace. I'm not done until that's gone too." Sunday morning, I woke to find Jason already gone. His briefcase and car keys were missing. On the kitchen counter sat a note. "Don't contact my clients again. This is harassment." I laughed softly, tore the note into perfect squares, and fed them into the garbage disposal. The sound was oddly satisfying. Around noon, the doorbell rang. It was Dana. Her makeup was uneven, her expression raw. "We need to talk," she said. I leaned against the doorframe. "Do we? Jason's threatening to sue me. He says I started the rumors." "Didn't you?" She blinked rapidly. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." I tilted my head. "You didn't mean to flirt with a married man either, I'm guessing." She swallowed hard. "You're enjoying this." "I'm enjoying symmetry," I said. "You see, you and Jason built something together. I'm just helping you watch it collapse." Her lip trembled. "You're cruel." "No," I said softly. "I'm thorough." She turned and stormed off, heels clacking on the pavement. I watched her go, not triumphantly, but with a strange calm. Every story needs contrast. Hers was my reminder of what happens when someone mistakes quietness for weakness. That evening, Trish texted me. "The HOA board is talking about Jason's business scandal. Should I defend you?" I replied, "No need. Let them talk. They'll lose interest once someone else stumbles." By Monday, the house felt different, lighter somehow. Jason hadn't come home the night before, and for once, I didn't care where he was. The gossip had done its job. The pedestal he'd built for himself now wobbled on every corner. At school, I was grading papers when my phone buzzed again. An unknown number. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" "Jason," I typed back, "define this. You've humiliated me. Clients are gone. Roger's furious. Dana's threatening legal action. You win." "Oh, Jason," I wrote, "winning implies competition. I'm just restoring balance." He didn't respond. That night, I went for a walk through the neighborhood. Lights glowed behind perfect curtains. I could hear the faint sound of laughter from houses that once ignored me. Maybe they laughed about me now, but that was fine. Fear and fascination often sound alike from a distance. When I returned home, Jason's car was in the driveway again. I found him sitting at the kitchen table, paper spread out before him. His expression was exhausted, not angry this time. "What now?" he asked quietly. "Nothing," I said. "You can stop performing. The audience has moved on." He looked up, eyes hollowed out by stress. "You got what you wanted." "Not yet," I said. "You still have hope." He exhaled shakily. "You're not the woman I married." "Maybe not," I said. "Maybe you never looked closely enough to notice who I was." He gathered the papers and stood. "This isn't over." I smiled. "It never is." He left, slamming the door behind him. I listened to the echo fade through the hall, then poured myself another glass of wine. The neighborhood was quiet again, but the silence wasn't peaceful. It was loaded, like a stage between acts. I looked out the window at the empty street, the trimmed hedges, the flickering porch lights. Everything looked perfect, as always. But I knew the truth. Perfection is just camouflage for chaos. The gossip had served its purpose, but I wasn't done. There were still threads to pull, and I planned to tug until the whole tapestry unraveled. Somewhere across town, Jason was probably sitting in a bar, explaining his version of the story to whoever would listen. Let him. The more he talked, the deeper the cracks would show. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. The neighborhood circus had performed its show, but the finale was mine to write, and I intended to make it unforgettable. By the time the calendar flipped to November, the air around our house felt heavier. Jason had stopped pretending. The cheerful greetings, the small talk, even the fake smiles, gone. He moved through the house like a tenant waiting for eviction, avoiding eye contact, eating in silence. It was exactly how I wanted him. Uncertain, unbalanced, questioning which part of his life would crumble next. On Monday morning, I came downstairs to find him already dressed for work, phone pressed to his ear. His tone was sharp. "Roger, I told you I didn't leak anything. Dana's the one who's been—" He stopped when he saw me. "I'll call you back." He ended the call and stared. "You think you've won something here?" "I'm not competing," I said. "You're the one turning this into a sport." He scoffed. "You've poisoned everything. My clients, my colleagues. They all think I'm a liar." "Well," I said softly, "maybe that's progress. They finally see what I've known for years." He glared, grabbed his briefcase, and left without another word. The sound of the door shutting felt like punctuation, a comma, not a period. That afternoon, Jenna stopped by my classroom. "You okay?" she asked. "You've been quieter lately." "Just focusing," I said. "Midterm essays, you know." She studied me. "You seem sharper. Not sad, exactly. Just focused in a different way." "I'm reorganizing my life," I said, smiling faintly. "It's an ongoing project." She nodded but didn't pry. Good teachers recognize when not to ask more questions. When I got home, a letter waited in the mailbox, formal, typed, with the logo of Jason's firm. I opened it carefully. It was a notice from the company's ethics committee. "Due to recent client complaints, the board is conducting a review of your conduct and professional relationships." I laughed quietly. The board had moved faster than I expected. At dinner, Jason said nothing until halfway through his meal. "Roger suspended me today," he muttered. "That must be tough," I said evenly. "All that effort maintaining appearances." His fork clattered onto the plate. "You're enjoying this?" "I'm observing it," I said, like watching a natural consequence unfold. He stood abruptly. "You don't understand what this will do to me." "Oh, Jason," I said, standing too. "That's where you're wrong. I understand exactly what it will do to you. That's the point." He stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the picture frames. I straightened one and smiled. The next day, I took personal leave from school and spent the morning at the courthouse filing paperwork for a preliminary separation. It wasn't about the divorce itself yet. It was about freezing assets, making sure he couldn't sell anything without notice. The clerk behind the counter, a grey-haired woman with weary patience, looked at the forms and said, "You've done your research." "I teach English," I said. "Documentation is my hobby." That afternoon, I stopped by the print shop and picked up a stack of flyers advertising Jason's exclusive listings. I highlighted the line that read integrity, discretion, trust. Then I added a sticky note to one of them. 3 things missing from the brochure. I pinned it to the community board at the local cafe where most of his clients met for coffee. By evening, my phone was buzzing with messages from neighbors. "Is everything okay? We saw something online about Jason's business. Should we be worried about the property values?" Suburban priorities never disappoint. When Jason came home that night, his face was pale, his voice strained. "What did you do this time?" "Be specific," I said. "It's been a busy week." "You're sabotaging me. Clients are pulling listings. Roger says they found an email with private photos attached. Did you send that?" I tilted my head. "Private photos? No, but it sounds like someone's been careless with attachments." He slammed his hand on the counter. "Enough games." I stepped closer, calm and unflinching. "Then stop pretending you're still in control. The truth's out, Jason. Everyone sees who you are now. You should thank me for freeing you from all that pretending." He stared at me, breathing heavily. "You've become someone else. Maybe I always was. You just never looked." For a long moment, we said nothing. Then he grabbed his keys and left again. I watched from the window as his car disappeared down the street, taillights blinking like fading excuses. The following weekend was the annual PTA charity gala, a polished suburban spectacle meant to raise money for new computers and inflated egos. Jason had been asked months ago to present a sponsorship check on behalf of his company. When the board called to confirm whether he would still attend, I said sweetly, "Oh yes, He'll be there. I made sure of it. The gala took place in the high school gymnasium, transformed with fairy lights and rented linens. Parents milled about in semi-formal clothes, clutching glasses of cheap wine and trying to look more important than they were. I wore black, not for mourning, but for effect. It made my expression unreadable. Jason arrived late, looking polished but frayed. The circles under his eyes betrayed sleepless nights. Roger stood near the podium, clearly tense. Dana was there too, at a table near the stage, pretending to laugh with a group of wives who'd already decided what they thought of her. When Jason spotted me, he froze. "Why are you here?" he whispered as he approached. "I'm part of the committee," I said brightly. "Don't worry, I'll keep it professional." He narrowed his eyes but didn't respond. The host called him up to the stage to speak. I watched as he straightened his tie and plastered on a smile. "Good evening, everyone," he began, voice steady but brittle. "It's an honor to represent our company and—" The microphone crackled. Then a sound filled the gym. A familiar voice. His voice. It was the same recording Evan had sent me weeks ago. "Clara's so easy. I could walk in wearing lipstick and she'd still believe I was faithful." A hush spread through the crowd. The next line, Evan's laughter, played clearly over the speakers. Jason's face turned the color of unripe fruit. He fumbled with the microphone. That's not... Someone hacked..." Murmurs filled the air, spreading like wildfire. Roger stood frozen. Dana covered her face with one hand, eyes darting toward the exit. I didn't move. I simply watched as Jason's world shrank to the size of that stage. Security finally cut the sound. Jason tried to recover, but the crowd had already shifted from sympathy to fascination. Suburbia loves a scandal more than it loves its own children. I turned and walked out before he stepped down. Outside, the cool night air felt crisp, almost cleansing. My phone buzzed again. "Evan." "Was that you?" "Call it poetic justice," I typed. His reply came fast. "He's coming after you. He's furious." "Let him," I wrote. "He can't touch what's already exposed." I was halfway to my car when headlights flashed behind me. Jason's sedan pulled up fast, tires skidding slightly on the pavement. He jumped out, eyes wild. "What did you do?" he shouted. "Public service," I said calmly. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone." "Correction," I said. "You embarrassed yourself. I just provided the audio." He stepped closer. "You think you've won? You've destroyed everything." I held my ground. "No, Jason, I just revealed what was already broken." He looked like he wanted to shout again, but instead he let out a harsh laugh. "You're unbelievable." "Thank you," I said. "I try." He got back in his car, revving the engine. For a moment it looked like he might drive straight toward me, but instead he spun the wheel sharply and sped off down the street. I watched the taillights vanish into the distance, then took a slow breath. My hands were steady. The next morning, word spread faster than the sunrise. Half the PTA had seen the video someone captured on their phone. It circulated online within hours, edited and subtitled. By lunchtime, Jason's name was trending in our city's gossip circles. At school, teachers whispered in the hallways, pretending not to stare. Jenna cornered me in the copy room. "Was that really?" "Yes," I said before she could finish. She blinked. "Clara, that's..." "Necessary," I interrupted. That afternoon, I received a call from the firm's HR department. "We understand you're Jason's spouse," the woman said cautiously. "We're investigating the incident from last night. He's been placed on leave pending review." "Of course," I said. "Let me know if you need character references." When Jason finally came home that evening, he looked hollow. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" he asked. "I'm satisfied," I said. "There's a difference." He dropped onto the couch, head in his hands. "You've turned everyone against me." "No," I said softly. "You did that yourself. I just gave them the stage." For once, he didn't argue. He just sat there, silent. That silence followed us for days. He moved out of the bedroom, claiming he needed space to think. I let him. It was easier to think with a wall between us, but even walls can't contain consequences. By Friday, I heard from Evan again. He's blaming me now. Says I betrayed him. You did, I replied. Welcome to honesty. This isn't funny, Clara. He's unraveling. He said he'd make you regret this. I stared at the message, smiling faintly. He's welcome to try. That night, I pulled into the driveway after grocery shopping and found Jason's car blocking mine. He stood by the hood, rain slicking his hair. We need to talk, he said. About what? Everything. I stepped closer but kept distance. Say what you need to say. He looked exhausted. I lost my job today. Roger said the company can't handle the scandal. Dana's husband is threatening to sue. My reputation's ruined. I tilted my head. You sound surprised. I'm sorry, he said suddenly. I shouldn't have lied. I shouldn't have. Save it, I cut in. You're only sorry because you got caught. He stepped closer, voice low. You've made your point. You've taken everything. What do you want now? I smiled. Nothing. That's the beauty of it. I already have peace. He shook his head, frustration flaring again. You think you're some kind of avenger? No, I said. I'm a teacher. I believe in consequences. He glared at me for a long moment, then turned toward his car. You'll regret this, he muttered. Maybe, I said, but at least I'll regret it from a place of honesty. He got in and drove off, leaving tire marks on the wet driveway. I watched them fade as the rain washed over the concrete. Inside, I set the groceries down and sat at the table. The house felt strangely quiet, but not empty, just cleansed. Later that night, as thunder rolled in the distance, I opened my laptop and checked my email. A message from Roger waited in my inbox. I admire your courage, Clara. Sometimes the truth has to be loud. If you ever need a reference, you have one. I smiled. The irony was delicious. Before bed, I looked out the window. Rain glistened on the driveway like spilled silver. The world outside was still gossiping, still moving, still spinning, but for the first time in years, I wasn't chasing its approval. Jason had built his life on lies. I had dismantled it one truth at a time. And as the thunder echoed, soft and distant, I realized something important. The storm wasn't punishment, it was renewal. But even then, I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Because peace was good, but closure would be better. And I had one last act to finish. The morning after the storm, the sky looked washed clean, the world damp and new. Jason's car sat crooked in the driveway, streaked with mud, looking as weary as I felt. He hadn't come home until late, and when he did, he moved like a shadow. No words, no lights, just the thud of his briefcase hitting the floor. By morning, he was gone again. Maybe the office, maybe somewhere darker. Either way, I didn't care. The wreckage of his reputation was almost complete. Only one loose thread remained, Dana. She'd helped him humiliate me, played the part of the laughing confidant. I wasn't done until she understood what it meant to stand in the heat she helped ignite. Her new apartment complex gleamed like a showroom. I found her silver convertible parked neatly in front, a perfect metaphor for the woman herself. Pretty, polished, pretending. She came out with her phone pressed to her ear, all brisk movements and false confidence. Clara, she said when she saw me. Just wanted to see how you're holding up, I said. Her tone turned sharp. Why are you here? For honesty, I said. Something both of you misplaced. She crossed her arms. You think this is all my fault. Jason said you didn't even care about him anymore. Jason says whatever fits the moment, I replied. She looked away. I didn't mean for this to happen. Then you should have chosen your audience more carefully, I said. He's broke now. His firm's investigating him. His name's Poison, and you're the one left standing in the smoke. Her voice wavered. You came here just to gloat? No, I said, to remind you that some lessons arrive late, but they always arrive. I walked away before she could answer. When I got home, the house was silent except for the ticking clock. Jason's car sat in the driveway like a monument to arrogance. I stood at the window sipping wine, watching the way the porch light glinted off its hood. That car had been his armor, his second self. It was time it reflected something truer. An hour later, I stepped outside with a bucket of muddy water and dish detergent. The air smelled fresh, clean, forgiving. I poured the mix across the windshield and roof, letting it drip down in streaks. Then I scattered gravel across the driveway, each stone landing with soft satisfaction. Headlights swept across the street. Jason's rental car pulled in fast. He braked hard and jumped out. "What are you doing?" "Cleaning," I said, symbolically. "You've lost your mind." "No," I said evenly. "I found it." He glared at the streaked car. "You've ruined everything. My job, my name, my life." "Not ruined," I said. "Revealed." His voice rose. "You could have walked away." "You don't get to lecture me on walking away," I said. "You built lies, smiled through them, and called that marriage. This is just equal footing." He rubbed his face. "You're enjoying this?" "I'm concluding it," I said. "There's a difference." Sirens sounded faintly in the distance. Jason cursed under his breath. "Perfect. The neighbors probably called the police. You've turned this into a circus." "Oh, Jason," I said. "It's always been one. I just stopped selling popcorn." When the officers arrived, one looked at the car and then at my bucket. "Looks like soap and water," he said. "No harm done." Jason's jaw tightened. "It's harassment." The older officer raised an eyebrow. "Or just frustration." "Civil matter, sir." Jason deflated. "Forget it." "Good idea," I said sweetly. After they left, he turned to me. "You've taken everything from me." I folded my arms. "You took first. I just documented it better." His voice lowered. "You've become cruel." "I've become accurate." He looked at me for a long moment, then walked inside. When I followed, he poured himself a drink with trembling hands. "I'm leaving," he said finally. "Take the clean car," I said. "It's honest now." He hesitated, then left without another word. I stood by the window, watching his taillights disappear down the wet street. The air outside shimmered with the scent of rain and detergent. The sprinkler system clicked on, washing the last streaks of mud from the driveway and leaving Jason's car dull and imperfect, truth painted in water. Across the street, I saw Trish's curtain twitch. Let her look, let them all see. For the first time, I didn't care about their stories. Let them gossip, let them speculate. I had my ending. I stepped back inside, leaving faint wet footprints across the tile. The house was quiet now. Real quiet, not the kind that hides tension under politeness, just stillness. I poured another glass of wine and sat at the table, the porch light flickering outside like the last applause of a long, strange play. Jason would go somewhere new, spin a tale about the wife who lost control. People would believe him at first, but lies rot faster than truth. They always do. I smiled faintly and whispered to the empty kitchen, curtain closed. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt earned,